War Day 344. Situation on the fronts. Freedom Alliance. According to Reuters reports, the U.S. is preparing another $2.2 billion military aid package, and this package will include GLSDB bombs. And it's quite important because these shells are capable of having quite a tangible impact on the front, as was the case with the HIMARS over the summer. GLSDBs are projectiles for the M270 and HIMARS, but with a longer range than the ones currently in service in Ukraine ground-launched. Small diameter bomb, these projectiles have a range of 150 kilometers and are a cruise bomb powered by an M26 missile. If these shells do end up in Ukraine, it will allow to hit targets throughout the occupied territories of mainland Ukraine, as well as the northern part of Crimea, which would greatly complicate the Russians' logistics, as it already did with the arrival of the HIMARS, only now the range will double. East fighting is going on along the Svatovo-Kremenna line, and it looks like the Russian troops are little by little Russian troops seem to be able to push the ZSU to the Zarabets River. On the right bank of the Seversky Donets attacks on Belagorovka, Verkhnekamenskoye and Spornoye were repulsed. From Soledar, the Russians are trying to move to the northwest by attacking Vasyukivka. Fighting continues for Krasnaya Gora and in the industrial zone of Bakhmut. The situation is difficult to the south of the city, where Russian troops are trying to reach the Konstantinovka, Bakhmut. Now their closest positions were fixed at 2 kilometers from the road. Last night the Russians launched a rocket attack on a residential building in Kramatorsk, killing civilians there. There was further fighting in the Avdiivka area, but there was no progress, nor was there any progress in Marinka. On January 24, the Russians launched their attack on Vuhledar, launching a massive artillery bombardment of Ukrainian positions, including with TOS-1 thermobaric ammunition, and, unlike previous, the Russians occupied the village and dachas on the outskirts of the city fairly quickly. This time the Ukrainians did not hold on to those places with all their might, and there was logic in that. Having retreated to Vuhledar, a dense town with high-rise buildings on flat and open ground, ZSU provided an excellent opportunity for the Russians to advance on this very flat and open terrain. And when the defenders have ample anti-tank and accurate artillery support, the result of such an attack can hardly come as a surprise to anyone. Well, the result of such an attack would hardly come as a surprise to anyone, except the Russian commanders, who have given such orders. Actually, at first on January 27. The newly restored Marines of the 155th Brigade happily attacked, but were hit by an accurate Ukrainian artillery fire. Most of them decided to stay in the fields near Vuhledar forever. Russian T-80 and BMP-2 tanks were thrown in to help the rest, but as it turned out, Ukrainian artillery did not care much whether to stop tankers or Marines in the fields. Marines. After losing a significant number of vehicles and men, the Russians returned to their initial positions to the previously captured Dachi. But on January 28, already the Ukrainian 72nd Mechanized and 1st Tank went into a counterattack, pushing the Russians back even further, damaging them and taking prisoners of war. Thus the Russians had suffered yet another defeat near Vuhledar, and now the intensity of the fighting has now quieted down. Further shelling continued along the front line, but without any progress.